Thank you for joining another wonderful episode of Success Innovation. Today's episode is titled, Empathy is the First Step. This episode is really amazing because I get to interview Miri Rodriguez. She works at Microsoft as the head of Global Internship Program. I learn and I understand why she is focused and dedicated to helping and supporting this endeavor of the internship program at Microsoft. We dive deep into why and how she managed to become an author of her first book, Brand Storytelling. And we will understand as to why and how it takes time and dedication as well as preparation to achieve success. I want to welcome Miri Rodriguez to Success Innovation. Let's get started. Thank you. Welcome to the audience. Once again, this is Lázaro joining you for Success Innovation. This is a video as well as a podcast audio version. If you listen to either or watch the YouTube channel and listen to the podcast version, thank you so much for being a loyal audience. And today I have the pleasure of having Miri Rodriguez. Miri is the author of Brand Storytelling. Brand new book. She's a brand new published author where she demonstrates how everyone is capable of achieving great success by organizing the way we tell our stories in a way that is really ours. She has been with Microsoft for nearly 8 years and is currently in the Seattle area as the head of the Global Internship Program. Welcome Miri Rodriguez to Success Innovation.
Yeah.
How are you this evening?
I'm great. Thank you, Lázaro. I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Sure. Yes. And I gave a short bio about who you are, but can you please tell us a little more about who you are and when you came from or where you came from? And you grew up in Venezuela for a little bit and then transferred over to Florida. Can you kind of walk us through that?
Yeah. I was born in Venezuela, in Caracas, right in the outskirts of Caracas. And so I spent my childhood there, which was really beautiful childhood. I really enjoyed growing up there. I was born in a missionary home. So my parents were missionaries. So we traveled a lot around Latin America by car, actually. And eventually made our way here to the United States. My dad got asked to move here as part of the missions, and so we came here when I was 13 to Miami. So I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, Miami area, South Florida is what we call it. And then I was actually called by Microsoft when I was there about 8 years ago, and so I started working for Microsoft first in LATAM headquarters, which is in Fort Lauderdale. Then I went remote and eventually made my way here to Seattle. So.
When you came over and you were 13 from Venezuela over to Florida, what was the biggest shocker for you when you came over to the States?
I think beyond the language, we didn't have any family or friends here. It was just us. And back then, there was not a lot of Spanish-speaking communities outside of Miami. So right now it's kind of bigger. It's expanded to like the northern area, even to the actually central area of Florida. Before that, it was literally just a hub of Miami, and it was more Cubans than anything. So there was more of a cultural shock for me in terms of Latins that were Americanized. I didn't realize what that looked like. I didn't understand. I didn't feel that I was, I felt like I was Latina from Latin America, but not Latina from America. So there was just this culture shock of what that looked like. So now I feel more American, Americanized Latina than actually from there. But when I first got here, there was a lot of different things. There was a lot of history that I didn't know. One of the things that shocked me as well was the Black history in Venezuela. We don't have that kind of racism, if you will. We're all just Venezuelan. We have different colors. We come from different parts. So it was really shocking for me to see the American history and the Black history here. So.
Wow. Okay, fantastic. So you probably came in and you were in middle school, correct?
I was in 7th grade. Mm-hmm.
Okay, 7th grade. And then you decided to go ahead and continue your education. Did you go to community college or did you go straight to a 4-year university?
I could not afford for university. My parents didn't have the means. In fact, my father is just told, it's just three of us. There's three sisters, and he just said to the three of us, "Listen, if you want to get to school, you're gonna have to earn your scholarships. I don't have money to put you to school." So we all did earn scholarships, and the one that I got was a Bright Horizons scholarship, same as my sister, and that was one that would ask you to go to a community college first, and then you can transfer to keep your scholarship and transfer to a university. So I did. I went to Broward Community College for 2 years.
Okay.
Then I transferred to FAU, and then I got married very early. I was 20, so it was really difficult for me to finish my school, taking night classes. So I actually moved out of FAU and went to a school called Trinity International University in Miami. That they had an Excel program, which is accelerated for working adults. So that helped me graduate on time. So yeah.
Okay. All right. And you obtained a bachelor's with focus on communication and organizational leadership. Can you kind of walk us through what that really means and how did you choose that major?
Yeah. To be honest, I chose it because it was the one thing that kind of got all the credits that I needed to graduate real fast. I didn't think it was going to be my career. In fact, I wanted to be a pilot. I had taken Air Force JROTC for 4 years in high school. I really wanted to go into the Air Force. I knew all the instruments. I had done 2 internships at an airport, at each airport, the executive airport and the actual Fort Lauderdale airport. So I knew how to read instruments and all of it. I was really into planes. And so when I transferred over, it was really around just graduating, and I took the course because my credits transferred faster if I did like a general communications course. It ended up being the best thing that happened to me in the long run because, back then there was no social media, there was no storytelling. Nobody could really foresee what would happen in the digital world of marketing and PR. But because I had this really general overview of all of these different channels and marketing and communications and internal communications and external, I was able to really hone into that. And when a social media job was available at Microsoft, I was able to take it. And then eventually with the storytelling role, the same thing. So it was really a blessing that I didn't, focus on one specific niche of business. I went all around. So.
Fantastic. So then the opportunity with Microsoft opens up about 8 years ago. Was that automatically bringing you over to Seattle off the bat?
No. In fact, I told them when they called me that I would never end up in Seattle. I said, if you call me, just let you know I will never, ever leave Florida. This is where I'm going to be forever. And it ended up being not a Microsoft thing. It was more of my sons. So I have 2 boys. And in the Latin, as you know, in the Latin community, we celebrate the coming of age for women, for girls at age 15, which is las quinceañeras or sweet 15. We don't do that for men. And I was really, stressed out over the fact that that's not fair for boys because they also too come of age. And I think it's very important for us to have this marking of their coming of age as well. So we, my husband and I did a ceremony for my sons when they turned 13, and we took from different cultures and different religions, and so we kind of mixed all these ideas of like coming of age ceremony. And so my son Alex turns 13, and one of the benefits they got from turning 13 was that they would get a house vote in our family matters. So every year we kind of, they had to sit down and make decisions with us at that level. So Alex, and they could also put things to vote, like, hey mom, I want to bring this to the family table to talk about it. So he was turning the next year 14, and he said, hey mom, I've been living here my whole life in Florida. I want to move somewhere else. You come from Venezuela, dad comes from Boston. Like, you guys know what it is to move. I've never moved out. So I want to move somewhere, live somewhere else. And so we put it to a vote because, that was the thing that we did. And at that time, my youngest was also turned 13. So everybody was voting, and everybody voted except for me. I didn't want to leave, but I got outvoted, as I always do in my house, for being the only girl. And so, so that's actually what activated us trying to move from Florida. And I was like, well, I work I work for Microsoft. There's probably a whole lot of things to do out in Seattle, so we chose Seattle, and I applied. I looked at the role that said storyteller, and I said, "Wow, sounds really fun. I don't know what it is, but I think I want to apply for that," and I did.
Was that the actual title,
That
storyteller?
was the title, yeah, storyteller,
Okay. Okay.
for core services engineering, yeah. And I had no idea what it was. It was a lot of communication, a lot of social media. Someone that just was really strong in communications. And so I had that background, and it was for engineering, which I was like, why are they hiring people for engineering in this space? So I applied and got it. In fact, I had an offer the same day that I did the interview, which was really remarkable. So
Wow.
about 2 months later, we were already out here, which is incredible.
Awesome. Congratulations. So
Thank you.
making the jump from the East Coast, Florida, so it's a little
Yeah.
warmer, over to Seattle. How
Hot.
is that? Yeah. How is that?
Oh, it is difficult. I'm not gonna lie. A lot of people warned me about the weather. I travel a lot, and we're a traveling family as well. So we're often different places, so we don't see the brunt of a lot of the just being here. But even with that, it's definitely tough. The weather does affect. I love sunshine, I love the beach, so it's definitely the weather is impactful. But the other part of that is in Florida, the culture is very strong. We have a lot of Latins and Caribbeans and a lot of attitudes, and everybody's honking on the road, everybody's fast paced. Here is very calm, and people are kind. So it's funny because the first time I was driving, here, I was honking at everybody, and everybody's looking at me, and I'm like, why are you honking? Like, you just move, I'm honking at you. Nobody honks here. Everybody just kind of is mellow, and nobody says anything, and everybody lets everybody go by. So it's funny because the vibe is much different, and people are very kind here. So
Right. Wow. Okay. Awesome. Okay. And then, so you're over in Seattle, and you have
yeah,
this position, which is called the head of the global internship program. But
yeah,
you also, you went ahead and you did an additional master's in
Georgetown.
Georgetown University. So that's after about 10 years. How did that come about?
Yeah. So I had a personal goal. I couldn't afford to get a master's immediately after school, after I graduated from my bachelor's from Trinity. It was a personal goal, and I always my goal was, if I can't get it right after school, if I can't afford to go right after, at least by the time I'm 40, it will be like my gift to myself. My 40th birthday will be to walk and get my graduation ceremony for my master's. So it was a strictly personal goal. It had nothing to do with my career. I didn't even know how it would impact my career, and it ended up impacting it 100%. In fact, the book happened because of the things that I learned and I applied from the master's course while I was being a storyteller. So I did it only for my own personal goal. And sure enough, I graduated on May, I think it was 19th or 17th. And my birthday is the 24th. So I walked on my 40th birthday.
Okay, all right. And so now that with this, you said that the master's actually impacted your career.
Yeah,
What
100%.
what? So how did that happen, or can you explain what that really
Yeah.
means?
Yeah. So what happened was I came into the role of storyteller in core services engineering, and I was asked, there were three storytellers, and we were divided by functional areas of Microsoft. So there's 6 functional business areas. I was given data and AI, and also security. They kind of tied it in. And so my job was to actually act as a journalist, find stories that were compelling, that were of engineers that were working on specific technologies, make them available to people with a how-to. This was in the midst of digital transformation for many companies. So it was really making content available from us to IT pros all over the world and devs that were going through the same transformation, and talking about how we were doing it at Microsoft so they too could do the same. These stories were meant to be very technical in nature, but also very humble in approach, and very, very vulnerable in approach. So basically getting the engineers to talk from a very personal standpoint of saying, this is what I'm going through right now. And that was a very tough thing to do. If you've ever tried to get a story out of an engineer, you'll know what I mean.
Right,
so I spent a lot of time. I spent about 3 months failing, not getting the stories. Nobody was talking to me. Nobody wanted to give me information. A lot of engineers would just like, the product speaks for itself, or, very pragmatic in their approach. So I was taking a course, a design thinking course at the time for my master's, because it has a design thinking certification piece to it, and a UX as well. And so I leveraged that design thinking model, and I called my professor and I said, hey, can we design stories? Can we use this model for storytelling? And he said, absolutely, you can use it for anything. You can think of stories as a product. So I was like, oh my gosh, I never thought of that. So I actually used the 5 steps in design thinking, and I leveraged it to actually get the stories, and it worked. And so that's actually what the book is about.
Wow, awesome. So when you started utilizing this new process of storytelling, fabrication, or processing,
designing,
when did you first see a breakthrough?
Yeah, it wasn't immediate, because the actual idea of designing stories and prototyping them is that they are prototypes, right? So they're not fully baked, they're not huge concepts, they're low cost, low effort, and you have to test them. So it's not an immediate result. It's more, I think, what the long-term idea is that you get good at designing, you get good at what's not working, and then evaluating what's not working so you can see what works. And so it's a very counterintuitive approach to how we want to deliver things, especially content, because we're used to saying, hey, we're going to evaluate our market, we're going to look at our audience, we're going to look at what they need, and we're going to give them this, and that's it. Instead, it's a really kind of intuitive approach of, let's spend a lot of time empathizing first. So that's the first step, empathizing, ideating, defining first, and ideating, then prototyping, then testing, looking at it. And so it's a lot of more process than the actual product, if you will. So it was a while before we actually broke through a really good story. And the story that broke that was really good ended up being a 6-part story from an engineer that's a veteran engineer at Microsoft. And he, the series was called Operationalizing the Cloud, the pitfalls, the challenges of operationalizing the cloud. So it was really a really well put together story from him, where he talks about his personal transformation during the digital transformation. So it was very human and also very technical, but it took us a while. It took us about 6 months.
So now that you're coming from a communications background and you're dealing with a lot of engineers, what do you think has been the most successful method during that, fabrication or modeling of the stories to be able to extract the true person behind the engineer in a desk?
Yeah. It was definitely asking the question why. And really digging personally. What I realized was, when I asked engineers a question, for example, say, why are you doing this here and not somewhere else, not at Google, not at Amazon? Why are you here? Their eyes widened, and they were able to give me personal stories, right? And so it was really matching their why, their purpose, more than anything. Why was that important to them? Why are they working on this specific project? Why do they choose to come to work every day? And so it was a very in-depth approach to their purpose at Microsoft and how they serve Microsoft, and then how Microsoft serves them. And I hadn't arrived at that until I realized that, again, empathy is the first step to good storytelling. And I wasn't empathetic as a person. I had to learn to do that. I didn't even know that you can learn to be an empath. It's actually a soft skill. So I had to learn that first, and it took me a while, because it's not my strength. In fact, at all. It's not even my top 10 strengths attributes. So I'm definitely a walking example of the fact that you can learn empathy, and you can actually hone it in as a soft skill.
Okay, fantastic. And then we get to, you mentioned the book. So how do you become an author? What happens? You're working at Microsoft, you're the head of the internship, you're doing this project with trying to extract stories. How does the book come about?
Yeah, so it's funny. I was so soon after we broke our series of stories that really landed very well. Everybody got curious at Microsoft, within Microsoft, in other disciplines. They're like, "Hey, Miri, how are you doing that?" Or, "Hey, come teach us how you're doing that." So I went around and started kind of teaching the methods of how we were doing it to other disciplines, anything from sales to marketing to HR, just everywhere. It just kind of exploded. I was really busy doing a lot of workshops internally and externally, because a lot of people as well outside got curious. I already built a brand outside in the marketing industry, and so I'm a speaker. So people started getting really curious. Hey, Miri, can you talk about storytelling? And so I did. So I was just basically sharing my learnings. And I was in one of those events, giving the keynotes in London, and the publisher came up to me that time, about 2 years ago, and said, "Hey, you got to write a book about this." And I was like, "No, not really. I don't have to write a book about it. I don't have the time. I don't have the I just can't." I'm like, and I don't even know how you can, basically create from a keynote, 5 slides, a whole book. Like, I don't have enough content. But she pressed on. She actually really believed that this was something that the world needed. She pressed on so much that she actually said, "You don't even have to write the book proposal. Can I just present it to my team, and and we can go forward with the contract?" And I was like, "Okay." And her pitch was really around, "Miri, you're going around the world doing this 1 to 100, 1 to 500, 1 to 1,000 at the max. You can really reach the masses if you write a book. You can really reach a lot of other people." She's like, and the publisher will also translate in different languages. You have more reach. So I think that was what kind of sold me. And I was also so scared at the same time to be like, I don't know what to write about. Like, I know what I have in the context of a keynote, right, over a workshop, but I don't know how to turn this into a book. So that's how it came about. It actually, I didn't start the project until a year later because I pushed back. I was finishing my master's. And so I pushed back, and then it was like crunch time. It's like, okay, you got to get it out. If you don't get it out, then, it's like, okay, fine. So 8 months, I would wake up for 8 months straight every day at 4 a.m. And 4 to 7, 3 hours in the morning, and then 3 hours at night, and then all 12 hours each day on the weekend. So it was very, very
So
strict. And I
essentially,
was
they
still
put
working.
fire under your feet to actually get it
They sure
going.
did.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and it was supposed to actually have published last year in summer.
Okay.
And the publisher said, "Hey, there's a few books. There's, like, the way that it works, there's schedules for different books that come out at different times." So they pushed me over to December, and then eventually to now. And it's incredible to me that, given this timing of what's going on, people are really, really listening to the fact that they need to be empathetic in a time like this from a
Right.
brand perspective. So of all the things that it we would have never foreseen what was going to happen. And had it published a year ago, had it published, in December, it probably wouldn't have the same effect it has today. So.
And you also mentioned that you were doing a keynote speech when that actually the opportunity presented itself. Was that a keynote speech from sponsored by Microsoft, or was this
No.
something that you were doing on your own?
Yeah, no, I do it on my own. So I have been for about 5 years now. I've been asked by industries to come and join and give keynotes around just thought leadership around Microsoft, the things that we do there, around in general just marketing tactics and communication tactics, and most recently storytelling with the work that I've been there. So I come out and I share my own learnings, and people are always intrigued because clearly this is something that's happening at a brand that is so powerful and so big.
Mhm.
So people get very, very intrigued, and so they really hone into the stuff that we're doing in there. And so we became open source about 6 years ago when Satya came on board. It was something that we didn't do much before. You wouldn't hear a lot of Microsoft teas out there talking about what's happening at Microsoft, but now we are, and I think that's part of just the open source approach that we have from from a brand perspective.
When you first were invited to do a keynote speech on
Yeah.
your own, where did that happen? How did it happen? Were you nervous? Were you expecting that invitation? Did you seek it out?
Yeah, no, I didn't seek it out. I attended. So I got a job for social media at Microsoft. was asked to own the 3 main channels for social support, so in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. And so it's big operation. It's under customer support, not the brand side, but the customer support side. And I was like, man, I know how to do social media from a personal standpoint. I don't know how to do it from a brand standpoint, so I need to go learn. So I asked my manager to let me go to attend a social media conference. And so I picked, there were so many going on at the time, and I picked the one in San Francisco because I just love the city. And so it was literally just because selfishly I wanted to go to travel to San Francisco. So I went to the Social Media Strategy Summit in San Francisco, and you have your badges and you do your networking. And Brianna Jacobs, who owns the Social Media Strategy Summit, she's the director, came up to me and she's like, "Hey, you're from Microsoft?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "What do you do?" So I told her at the time we were launching Windows 10, and there was a lot of buzz around, on social media about Windows 10. So she's like, "Hey, what are you guys doing? And what's going on?" So I explained what we were doing, our strategies and things. And she's like, "Why don't you come speak next year, around this time?" And I was like, You're kidding me. Like, she didn't even know if I could speak publicly. I couldn't speak publicly. So I was like, okay. So I said yes. And then I went back to Microsoft. I was like, hey, I've been invited to talk. Can I do this? So it actually became a big deal. Legal got involved. It was just like PR got involved, and you're going to go represent the company. What are you going to say? What are you not going to say? Let me see your deck. I mean, it was just like a whole year of preparation for this thing. And I was just like, I'm just going to do it, and that's it. That's the rest is history. From that, I was asked to come and do other ones. For the next 2 years, my calendar got booked. It is booked a year in advance now. And it's been all been word of mouth. I've not had to pitch once to any industry. So.
Congratulations. So off of that, did you start your own side business essentially?
I did. So Microsoft. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, yeah. So Microsoft's really good about things like, moonlighting, and they're very open source to that as well. So yeah, so I began my own company, and then began, it really became just something that I was really excited about, to be able to share on the public stage. And clearly, it wasn't a keynote at first. It was just like, hey, come speak and do a workshop. And then I got requested to do keynotes. And one thing I loved to see was that they were seeking women in tech, which is, not a lot of us, right? So I got to get on big stages because there's not a lot of women out there. And I really do want women to put themselves out there more, because truly, there's opportunity if you do. So there's very, very little Latina women in tech talking and getting on stage. So I don't know if my opportunity was because I was good or just because I was Latina, but maybe, whatever it was.
Whatever it is, you took it, obviously.
And I just did.
Yeah. So what's the biggest surprise or biggest scenario or biggest, platform that you've actually been invited to speak to where you've said, oh my God, I never imagined I'd be at this locale or at this venue for this particular event?
I probably have to say Prague. Prague was pretty big. There was 2, so one in Israel, and then the other one was in Prague. So in Israel, I estimated, I think it was 500 people. But what was really, important was not so much the number, but the actual type of people that were joining the conference. It was very high VIP, media and executives. It was just a lot of people, that were decision makers. So not just your typical social media conferences. You'll have a lot of communicators at the mid-level. These were all executive level people. And I didn't realize that until I got there. So I was just like, oh my gosh. So the media, TV, everything was really, really interesting to know. It was like a lot of pressure, but I didn't realize it until the end. So I was able to just deliver my content, and it was like, oh, everybody's here, so I was like, okay. And then for Prague, I did get briefed. And Prague was, I think the biggest thing, it was big in numbers, but also the fact that, the actual conference is for IT pros. And I've learned that's a very niche audience. They're very skeptical in general. They don't just, they don't just accept information. They dig information. They're skeptical. They're curious. That's the way they respond. So you don't get a lot of response right away from them. You don't know how it landed until a couple of days later. So I've learned this, and I went with every year I kind of finesse my new kind of keynote. And last year, the one I did at Prague was actually around empathy. I call it Empathy Rise Against the Machines. So it's this idea of like the robot apocalypse coming in, and we have to stay human, and especially for the devs and the IT pros, that they will, stop for a moment at the design level and think about their bias when they actually design a product or a machine. So it's a very kind of in your face presentation. And I was a little bit scared to deliver it to that audience, but it landed well. So it's just
awesome.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that one of them is about empathy. Do you have a couple other topics that you usually talk about that you kind of already prefabricated and you model them to depending the audience that you're trying to target at that point, or is there something that they give you a topic to talk about and you develop it as you go?
It's both. I've created around 3 that I think are my go-tos based on the just what people have consistently asked me about. So based on the need that I've seen. I also coach for personal branding. I have a lot of mentees, and so one of the things is using storytelling, especially your story of origin, to brand yourself in the market, to understand your purpose, your why, to really pitch yourself, pitch your resume, pitch your LinkedIn profile. So all of that comes along really nicely if you have the story of origin baked. And so that's one. And I use that a lot, especially for the younger audiences, like early in career. And then the other ones are really around the maybe a storytelling 101 approach, which is the one that I talk about, Empathy Rise Against the Machines. And it's basically going through that 5 phases of design thinking and explaining how you can prototype your stories with that. And then the last one is the latest one is called Alchemy. And it's around basically, it's kind of like a 2.0 level 300 or 200 based on already storytellers who know how to tell a story, but they want more like deeper tips and tricks on getting more appealing to their audiences and how. So it's more of the later side of the book of like, hey, now you're a storyteller, let's turn you into a story lord. Now let's get real good into the mastery of storytelling.
Yeah. So what's the most appealing part of your job and also your own business?
Yeah. I would say people. I love people so much. And so when I was in core services engineering, doing the storytelling specifically, I had a lot of opportunities, including the one that I have now, to impact people from a culture shift perspective. People know and understand that stories instill values. They instill, core identities, things that we want to do differently as a blueprint, really a blueprint for culture activation. And so I was brought into HR as the head of global internships to do that at the student level. And it was really a natural progression for me because I had already been working with students. I've always worked with students. I volunteer with student organizations. My heart is for students. I really believe that our students will have different opportunities today. We should really help them get those opportunities the best way, the things that I didn't get to do at their age, to really set themselves up for the future differently and better. And so, I was really glad to go from engineering to HR because now my product is people. When I see what I do and we use the storytelling and they use the storytelling and they learn the storytelling, they are the ones going out and telling the stories. They're the ones going out. It's no longer just a paper or a blog. They are the storytellers. So we're really turning them into an army of storytellers for what they can do for themselves and go out and do that for themselves. So it's part of the soft skill that we're teaching them. And then when I go out and do it, for my own, when I go out to give a keynote, just meeting people and saying, hey, Miri, you really changed the way that I was thinking about this. I learned something new. There's a new insight. That's really, really, for me, heartfelt because it means that I was able to educate someone at some level, to help them look at something, a different angle. And that really, really elates me a lot. I'm really always so grateful to have the opportunity to do that. So
I'm pretty sure that throughout your, experiences with keynote speaking and dealing with Microsoft as an employee there, you've had the opportunity to meet so many personalities. Yes. Out of your quick memory, which one stands out the most that you actually, they don't have to be, stars from
Maybe.
Hollywood. They
Yeah,
could be whoever, but somebody
yeah.
that you say, oh my God, I met this person, and this is an individual that I never imagined I would meet.
Yeah, yeah. I actually wrote about the two of them in the book, the opportunities that I had. And one of them is actually James Whitaker. He is a distinguished engineer. He was a distinguished engineer at Microsoft for many years. He is now somewhere else, but a brilliant, brilliant man. He became my mentor. I had the opportunity to meet him once and hear him speak, and I was just wowed. I mean, just floored by his ability to kind of marry the right side of the brain with the left side. Just an incredible human being, and a speaker, and you know, his presence, all about everything about him. It's just amazing, and he's just brilliant. So I would say in general, Lázaro, that being at Microsoft and really having a platform that I have today, the best gift I've gotten from that has been meeting people, just incredible, incredible people. Just, I am always, you know, the dumbest person in the room, and that's a great thing to be, right? So, yes, I've met a lot of incredible, incredible people. And yes, I've met some celebrities. Yes, I met some really great influencers in the both tech and industries, and marketing industries. And just the humility of them is wonderful, to be able to just sit down and, you know, have coffee and talk about their families and talk about their kids, and it's just wonderful. It's an incredible thing.
I'm just gonna ask, maybe for the audience, and for me, is Bill Gates easily accessible? Do you run into the guy, or do you not?
I will say this. Bill Gates makes himself accessible to the things he loves and cares about. And he cares about interns a lot. He does. He cares about the future of Microsoft, and he cares about interns. So he tunes in very, very quickly when we ask him something to do with interns. And a lot of people do at Microsoft. I would say all of the leadership does. So yes, he's a really busy guy, but he's a really he's focused on people, and I love that about him, that he really cares about the future of our world and of Microsoft. So,
all right. So right now, what's the next step for Miri? You're an author, you're keynote speaker, you're the head of the Internship Global Program at Microsoft. What's next for Miri at this point?
Gosh, so I don't know. I have to say I don't know. It's my life has been completely and always one of those things that one step leads to the next, and I don't even see the next step yet. I'm just kind of reeling in the first step and going, okay, I'm here, I'm gonna do this, and I don't look that far, because I have learned that just everything changes so quickly, and I don't plan that far ahead. What's next is whatever opportunity the book provides at any level, I plan on taking advantage of it. Whatever opportunity Microsoft provides at any level, I'll plan on taking advantage of it. And just in general, meeting more people, connecting with people like you, these are opportunities that I welcome. And so I will ride the wave as far as it takes me. One of my mentors always said, just ride the wave, ride the wave. So I was like, I'm riding the wave, and we'll see what's next. My son, there's a lot of things happening from a personal standpoint. My son is graduating this year from high school. He's turning 18 in a couple of weeks. So there's a big milestones in my house about our family, and we're very keen to enjoying those moments as well. So, staying busy, but also staying, doing all the roles that I am, a mom, a sister, a wife, all the things that I am, and enjoying those as well.
Right. Fantastic. And you mentioned, so I'm gonna focus a little bit on what's going on at the moment when we're actually recording this. There's a COVID-19 and there's a pandemic, and everybody's kind of at home. You mentioned your son, he's 18, he's about to graduate. At least in California where I'm at, a lot of the schools have essentially postponed school attendance, not necessarily the classes, but I just want to know from your point of view as a mom, as a parent that has a senior about to graduate, how is he taking the fact that there's a possibility that there is not going to be a physical graduation? I mean, 4 years out of his life dedicated, and this ceremony, as you mentioned, you guys did a 13-year party for a coming of age. I believe that a graduation off of high school is essentially a coming of age in the educational portion. And I think that it is important because it's a rite of passage, essentially. How is he dealing with it, and how are you coping as a parent, and how are you helping him cope with
Yeah,
it?
that's a great question. You know, one of the things that our family, we have a family 5 core values that we teach in our home and we live by. And for us, living by those values really means one of those is to be generous, and that means not just to give, but to be empathetic to other people in our generosity, in the way that we think of ourselves less. And you know, as I had to break the news actually today to my son, we just got the email that schools will be closed through June. That probably impacts graduation. They have not made that decision yet, but the ceremony could be impacted. So it's highly likely that it will. And I had to go in and tell him that. And I said, honey, I know you've been looking forward to this for a long time. If this is the biggest one of our problems, and I don't mean to minimize it, but if it is, thinking about people who are actually losing their lives today to this disease, to this illness, we really are blessed in so many ways, and we will not diminish the graduation for you. The momentum of that will celebrate you. We'll celebrate you in the best way that we can once this is over. You know, it doesn't take away from the efforts that you made. You continue to do what you're doing. This is just one more life lesson to all of us of the things that we can't control, that are out of our control, and also helps us understand how you know, how we are all interconnected. One thing affects the other, and in this meism that we've created around ourselves, that you do you and whatever floats your boat, that idea of meism has to kind of break down a little bit to understand that all of us are interconnected. We are all affected by one another's you know, decisions or the things that we do. So he was fine. I asked him if he wanted to you know, what he wanted to do next. And we had planned for him a trip to Florida because we were going to also celebrate him there. And he goes, Mom, I want to go to Florida. I want to be with my family. That's all that matters. One of our also family values is family first. So that's our second core value. And basically it means that before we do everything with everybody else, we do it with family first. Family is always number one. So he has always been, you know, he was always looking forward to the family celebration more than the friend celebration here, which will happen anyway. So.
Fantastic. You know, you mentioned that you have a mentor, Mr. Whitaker, within
I
there.
have 6 mentors.
Okay, great. So that's my question. You know, good leaders always create good leaders. And can you kind of you mentioned Mr. Whitaker, can you mention another one or 2 more and share some of the lessons, the big lessons that you've learned and implemented that have made you successful?
100%. Case Pronk, who was he was a I forget he had a big title at Microsoft. He was like a big like lead for all of Europe for customer success at Microsoft for many years. He was a veteran at Microsoft. He recently left about 3 years ago. But I met him around 8 years ago when I first started, and he had come in to visit our LATAM region. I was in LATAM, and he, you know, it was like the big boss is coming to town. We prepped so much, and I had an opportunity. It was a very, very serendipitous opportunity because I wasn't in the ranks to be able to meet him in person. You know, I wasn't supposed to meet him that day. It was like my boss's boss who would meet him. But it was a very serendipitous moment. I got to meet him and actually get to present to him. And we connected immediately. So he became a mentor. I asked him to become a mentor, and he has been ever since. He is the kind of mentor that will slap my face. He will say the things very raw. He's very European. He's like, Miri, blah, 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 and he's, you know, in his accent, and I love him for it. And what I learned from him, one of the biggest lessons, I would always come in and be really, really upset about something at work. Hey, you know, this happened, blah, 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 blah. So I would come in very animated and tell my stories, and he would just be always collected and listen to me. And he would say, Miri, if you sit long enough by the river, you could see your enemies flow by. And I'm like, I don't want to hear this anymore, this patience idea. Leave me. I'm like, I don't want to sit by the river. I don't want to sit by the river, And he would just be like, you sit by the river long enough. And all the time, you sit by the river. And so years later, I saw my enemies flow by, right? So I was sending him an email. I was like, you told me. He goes, you sat by the river, right? So it's this idea of really just time takes care of things in its own. You don't have to agitate yourself. And I'm very, like, So he would always kind of like calm down. Another mentor, Benito Hernandez, I met him at Motorola. We're still friends, and I do reach out to him once in a while. And he, he always taught me that I would never get to the next step in life until I was ready. So you could do whatever you want. You could apply to 1,000 jobs. You could push the issue, and you won't get it until you are ready. And how do you know that you're ready? You will know you're ready. And then you'll be able to go to the next step. So it's this idea once again of, we think we're ready for something. We think we want to go do something and it doesn't happen. We get frustrated. And we ask ourselves why. And it's most likely an egotistical approach of like, hey, I know I can do this. I know that's for me. I know I can do it better, versus what is the lesson here? And what do I need to learn more? What is it that I'm not doing right? What is it that I need to prepare on better to position myself to the next step? I have not had to apply for a job in the last 3 jobs that I've had. I have not had to even apply. And so it's really interesting because, he was right. It's when you're ready, it's yours and it'll come to you. It's yours and you'll be ready. You will know you're ready. So
is that patience combined with the persistence, perseverance, all bundled together?
And preparation. You're preparing for the moment. Right.
Yeah. Preparation. Correct. Preparation. What do you believe your superpower is at the moment? Or if you don't think that you have one, if you could select anything, what would you select to be as a superpower and why?
Oh my gosh. I don't think I have any superpowers, to be honest. I can be a machine. I guess I could be a machine. I could work a lot I have a lot of energy. So I can work 15 hours straight and not, just keep going. I've done it. So I don't know that that's more of a superpower of anything. I don't think it is.
It is. You could be kind of like the Terminator.
Probably.
Keep going.
Go. I can.
Yeah.
I have that. And I realize
persistence. Yeah. Persistence.
It is, yeah. And I didn't realize I had that until I like pushed it on my kids and my husband. I was like, hey, let's all do this. Let's all go. And they were like, Mom, you're like the only person that can do that. Everybody's tired, So, so I was like, oh, it's only me. I can do that. Okay. But I think if I had to wish for a superpower, I would wish invisibility. I would love to just walk in unseen, hear people, get to know what's happening without me being there. I'm very curious that way, so I would love to kind of play invisible if I could.
Okay, all right, fantastic. I got 3 more questions. The next one is there any particular book, movie, podcast that you actually listen to and that you've benefited from that you would share with young students, young professional careers, so that they can actually get the same benefit off of and the same lessons so that they can implement and become successful in their careers or in their lives?
Yeah, absolutely. So 2 books that I love that are classics for me, and I think everyone should read, actually. There's one called The Purpose-Driven Life, and it is a really popular book that's been translated to many languages by Rick Warren. And it does start with, it has a religious connotation to it, but even if you're not religious, it really talks about your purpose in life. So move away from the idea. I'm not trying to sell anybody any beliefs. What I'm trying to get to is it really helps you from a manual perspective to understand your why, and really to drive your own purpose in life and move away from societal, parental, even cultural values that have been instilled in you and really create your own. So it's really important, because for me, that was really important to do. So The Purpose-Driven Life is a great book. The other one I think everybody has read is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. I think when you read it once, maybe in school you read it just for literature. When you go through life and you read it again, it's one of those books that just teaches you a different lesson every single time. And for students right now, early in career, as you're getting started in life, it's a great book for you to start thinking about life differently, about the idea, once again, of this interconnectedness happens at the human level, and the things that you're going to do that affect the rest of your life, of the decisions that you can make. We think we're invincible at that age. We think, we can do so much and nothing will happen. There is consequence, good or bad, to the decisions that we make. Even though these are the times to make mistakes, it fell fast. Measure those. Measure the ideas of how you decide about life, because there's a lot going on beyond ourselves. It's not just us. There's a lot of different things happening. So I think the book reminds us of that idea that there's more going on than we see in the world. It's beyond ourselves. So.
Right. Right now, a little plug-in for you. If the audience, anybody in the audience wants to buy Miri's book, brand storytelling, I'll put the link in the bottom of the notes, and you can purchase it. I'm assuming it's on Amazon. You can purchase it there.
On Amazon, absolutely. You can go to the landing page as well, brandstorytellingbook.com, brandstorytellingbook.com. You can go there and read more about the actual book, why I wrote it, and where to find it. So.
Okay, I'll also put Miri's LinkedIn link, so that you can connect with her and you can reach out to her and make that networking connection happen. And the other question is, another 2 questions left. You've been very successful. You've come from Venezuela at the age of 13. You landed over in Florida, pursued a communications degree, worked for Microsoft. You have your keynote speaking gig going on. So to the eye of a layperson, that's success. But I want to know from you what the definition of success is at this moment for you.
Thank you. I really love that question, because I think success is very subjective, and it's not part of what the society thinks it's deemed successful, or what anybody else. You really have to create your definition of success for your life. For me, success is being the best I can possibly be in every area of who I am as a person, as a mom, as a wife, as a sister, as a friend, as a worker, as a mentor, as an author. All the things that encompass me. If I can look back in life and go, was I the best that I could be? Did I give my best to this space in my life? And if I can say yes, that is success to me. It's got nothing to do with money. It's got nothing to do with status. It's got nothing to do with titles. It is really your own idea of what excellence looks like to you in your space. So that is success to me.
Fantastic. Thank you. The last question is one that I really enjoy asking. And this one is, let's say you can get on a time machine and go back to the age of 13. Go back to the age of 13 when this is going back to meet young Miri, when you're just coming into a foreign country, essentially, where the language and the culture are different, even though you're Latina from Venezuela, from Latin America, and you find this Latino Americanized culture.
Yes.
Can you share with me and the audience what you would share, 2 or 3 pieces of advice that you would share with that young 13-year-old young lady? What would you say to her if you have about 2 or 3 minutes to talk?
That's a great question. I would say, the first thing I would say is, don't stop smiling. Don't stop smiling. I was always very careful, very calculated in my persona, because I'm very out there and I love people. And it was always, I felt misconstrued. I felt people were always like, oh, she's flirting, or she's, I don't know, just always a negative connotation to me being kind to people. It was in a place where I was very driven by religion. Women are seen, not heard. My persona and my personality didn't fit. My gregariousness didn't fit. don't stop being who you are. It'll eventually help you. It'll get you where you need to go. Don't you were created this way for a purpose. Find it. That's what I would say, because I spent a lot of time begrudging my own persona and saying, why was I created like this? Like, why am I an extrovert? I don't want to be this. I don't want to be friendly. I'd rather be just standoffish like everybody else. But I couldn't. I was drawn to people always. And now I know why. So that would be the first thing. The second thing I would say is don't stop trying. Don't stop trying. You're going to face so many things. Keep going. It's worth it. Keep going. You're going to have haters. You're going to have all kinds of things happen, but just persevere. Persevere and you'll be fine. And you'll be able to leave the legacy that you want for your family, for your children. One of the things that when I got there, I was just like, I don't want to, I want to live the American dream. That was my dream. I think I can do that. I think I need to do that. And so I am. And because I didn't give up, and not because it was easy, but because I didn't give up. I was times where I worked three jobs in a day. There were times where I was going to school at night, working during the day. Unfortunately, I didn't have the opportunity to stay home with my children. I couldn't afford it. So there's a lot involved in today that happened in all those years. And it was because I didn't give up.
So that persistence and preparation that we talked about earlier.
Right.
And that's what it leads up to. Yes, thank you, Miri, for sharing those points with us that you would share back with your younger self. Thank you so much. And for us, once again, this has been Success Innovation. Thank you so much, Miri, for your time tonight. Thank you to the audience. Once again, this has been an audio and a video episode of Success Innovation. You will be able to find the links to purchase Miri's book and also connect with her via LinkedIn. And once again, I'll see you next time with another wonderful episode of Success Innovation. Thank you. Have a wonderful night. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening and watching another wonderful episode of Success Innovation. In this episode with Miri Rodriguez, we went deep into a conversation about what it takes to achieve success, how to seek out mentors, and how to take advantage of the advice that they give you. We also touched in a personal level as to how this pandemic is affecting the life not only of hers, but her family, how her son is also being affected by possibly not obtaining a graduation ceremony, but nonetheless, she pursues and she assures them of how they will continue to benefit by staying together, the core values that they have as a family, and what they can do to continue moving forward. Thank you for watching and listening to another wonderful episode of Success Innovation. Lázaro Herrera signing out. See you next time.